What's going on, everybody? I've got Chris Moxley here with me. You guys saw both of us pretty much on all of day one and day two's draft coverage. We wanted to kind of give ourselves a little bit of a day off, so we took off yesterday, just kind of watch the draft, but he joined me here today. We're going to go over all the guys that were drafted in rounds 4 through 7 and discuss if we think they have any fantasy value. Moxley, how you doing today on this beautiful Sunday?
I'm doing all right. Caught up on the rest of draft coverage, caught up on some sleep. It was a nice day.
Yeah, that was definitely the best part of yesterday was not having to worry or stress about, who we had coming on or anything like that. Just kind of sit back, relax, watch all that stuff. It was a lot more fun than I realized. We were just talking a second ago, and I did not realize how many of these running backs and wide receivers. In fact, I missed a couple of these players going off the board yesterday. So let's discuss them. We're going to start with the quarterback position. Ian Book and Sam Ehlinger were the only two that came off the boards in rounds 4 through 7. Book comes off in round 4 at pick 28 in the 4th round to the New Orleans Saints. Does that do anything for you? Does he just look like a career backup? Would you take a shot on him, knowing we don't know what's going to happen in the future with was it Winston and Taysom Hill?
No, I don't like Ian Book at all. Yeah. That's a classic Sean Payton pick too, right? Athletic quarterback, okay arm. He thinks he can turn him into something that isn't all that great. I have no interest in him. I thought that was a terrible pick when they made it.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about it being like when he drafted Taysom Hill. They're like, oh, this just feels like another Taysom Hill. So I'm with you. I think at best he's maybe a backup next year if they decide to move on from Winston and keep Hills under contract for a couple of years. But yeah, I'm not. He's a guy like if you're talking 40-man dynasty rosters, sure, I'll grab toward the end of a roster just to, again, especially super flex, if you have those backup QBs, if someone gets hurt, great. Outside of that, I'm with you. I don't see much. And I'm going to say I think the same thing about this next guy. I've said from the beginning, I always thought he was going to be a good quarterback in the fact I think he could be a good backup and just kind of if your starter goes down, fill in for you for a little bit. And that's Sam Ehlinger out of Texas. He goes in the 6th round at the 34th pick to the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, even if Carson Wentz goes out there and is just complete crap, I do not see them benching him for Ehlinger. Do you agree with that? Any upside here with Ehlinger?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. He's a guy that could probably make it as a backup because of his playing style, right? He plays a very safe game manager controlled game, has a little bit of rushing upside. He's mobile enough. I think a team could see him and say, hey, this is a guy that we want to be, a backup or a mentor. Like, would it shock you if he had like an 8 or 10 year career where he's just bouncing around teams? Not really, right?
And that's exactly what I think. So I feel it's the same thing then kind of. Well, I'd take him over Ian Book. I would take Ehlinger over Ian Book because I feel like he is what you just said right there. He's that journeyman guy that, again, you know, and I hate saying this because none of us root for injuries. You know he's going to end up on some team one year where the quarterback gets hurt and you need him to fill in for the rest of the year. And he's going to bring you value then. So, yeah, I'm with you 100% on him. And I like him better runner. Doesn't have quite the arm I think Book has, but he's more accurate. And I just think overall just a better quarterback.
Absolutely.
All right, so running backs. This is the one that kind of sent Twitter ablaze Saturday morning when this happened because Michael Carter comes off the board with the 2nd pick in the 4th round to the New York Jets. We were all waiting. It felt like those first 2 days of draft coverage trying to figure out what running back they were going to go with. They go with Michael Carter. It is a good system fit for him with that outside run zone scheme. I know when it happened, I tweeted out, I'm not quite as thrilled as some other people. I saw some people jumping him up as like the easy RB4. They were taking, I saw a draft today where he went over Javonte and ETN, which is insane to me. And this is a 16-team league too, mind you. But what are your thoughts on Carter going to the Jets?
It's fine. Day 3 draft capital for him is tough to swallow. I thought he was going to be a day 2 guy. That seemed like what the media buzz was saying, but I'm not totally shocked by it. He's not super big, but he's okay in a pinch. I think he's a guy who can kind of fill in. I mean, I've always compared him to like a Gio Bernard type player where you're not super thrilled to have him, be your starter or log heavy carries and a workload, but he's okay. I think everybody's propping him up because of the Jet situation. I mean, Pirine and him went about the same spot last year, so I'm not sure that Carter's just going to automatically come in and see a huge workload. I think a lot of the analysis we're seeing is people kind of dug into their pre-draft notion of Carter, where he was likely a round 3 pick, possibly a round 2 pick, but yeah. I'm not really that fascinated. It's fine. I think you're right, though. People need to pump the brakes on Carter.
Yeah, I think my biggest fear, almost with I'm a little bit higher on this with Trey Sermon landing with the 49ers, obviously, but we talked a lot about this when that happened live, was, are we overrating it because of the landing spot? Like, yes, we all think Michael Carter is going to be a decent running back here at the next level. We know he can catch the ball. He's a decent runner. But then everybody sees him go to the Jets, who we all thought was going to take a running back. And now all of a sudden it's, oh, well, he's definitely the starter. He's got Zach Wilson. It's going to be a revamped offense. He's the guy. Let's go out there and grab him. I'm not 100% sure, that Coleman and Pirine will still not be involved. I replied back to someone who said that they thought he's easily the day one starter for the Jets. He comes from that Kyle Shanahan system. We've seen it with Kyle Shanahan, who almost always is deploying multiple RB sets. He's got 3 running backs sometimes he's using in that offense. And we've seen the same thing from Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. We all want Aaron Jones to get the ball, but we've seen the past couple of years, Jamal Williams, and even last year when Jamal Williams got hurt, A.J. Dillon get the ball a lot. So I don't think this is just a set it and forget it. Michael Carter is the guy for the Jets. I do think Coleman and Pirine will be involved. Good pick, but again, I think, like we just mentioned in that 16-team route where he went ahead of Javonte and Travis Etienne. I'm not even the biggest Etienne guy. You're going a little crazy on that, taking him that. And he was like with pick 104 too. Like it was, yeah. I don't know either. I was kind of like watching. I was like, I mean, hey, thank you, because you just let better players fall down to me. But wow, that was a big reach in my opinion. Next up, I imagine you're not going to really think much of this guy. I know he can play running back and fullback, and I don't even know how to say his last name. I don't even really know how to say his first name. Kane, I don't know, but he was at Iowa State. We didn't get to see much of him because of Breece Hall. He goes with the 14th pick in the 4th round to the Vikings. I mean, you already have Alexander Mattison and Dalvin Cook there, so I don't see anything really here. Maybe if you really want to take a shot late, but no.
Yeah, I was surprised he went so early. He's a great athlete, like fantastic athlete, very, very high-level athlete. I think his role is probably on special teams, maybe as a returner. He does have special team skills, so I think that's probably where he's going to fit in. He's really the Mike Boone replacement. They lost him to Denver. So athletic guy, 210, but I don't think he has any fantasy upside. He's a guy the Vikings probably just drafted to get some special teams work. But in the 4th round above other backs, that was a reach of a pick for me.
Yeah, I was a little surprised, especially with some of the other guys that I saw go, which, one of my guys there, literally the last running back drafted, who we'll get to, just kind of broke my heart there yesterday. Next up, Felix's guy goes in the 4th round, which, not great draft capital, but I thought interesting landing spot. Has me at least a tad bit intrigued here, and that is with the 15th pick in the 4th round. The Patriots took Ramondre Stevenson. Now, again, same thing. He's going to that loaded backfield, and we always talk about you never know what running back is going to be the guy for Bill Belichick. I think Sony Michel's kind of on his last leg. We saw they lost James White. I still believe in Damian Harris. I think he's a really good running back, but none of those guys have the size / somewhat speed combo that Ramondre Stevenson has. He's not quite as fast as those other 2 guys, but he's got a little bit of burst. So what are your thoughts about him going here to the Patriots backfield?
It's fine. Like, that's kind of the theme, I think, for a lot of these guys. I think that's best case scenario for Ramondre. Like, there's not really an entrenched starter there. I like Damian Harris a little bit too. I think he's probably the favorite to lead the backfield in touches this year. Sony Michel's dust. But, at the same time, I think I was never really high on him throughout the process. He's a guy that I don't think has the best tape, but yeah. If you like Ramondre Stevenson, this is a good place to have him in an open backfield where, Belichick likes that kind of player. So, there's upside.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could end up being almost like LeGarrette Blount, but not the year LeGarrette Blount ran like for a ton of yards and touchdowns. Like maybe that goal line back that's going to steal a lot of touchdowns from Damian Harris, unfortunately, because we actually saw that a lot last year. Damian Harris was getting a lot of run toward the end of the season, and then when they got down into the red zone, it was Sony Michel and James White. So Damian Harris was never getting you those touchdowns. So that could end up hurting you. But and I'll we'll circle back with the running backs here. I think he's one of those guys out of this next like 7-8 guys we're going to talk about that has a little bit more value, just because I think he does have a more solidified role here on the Patriots and some of the other guys we saw get drafted. A guy that I think has a good role as a clear backup is Chuba Hubbard, who was drafted with the 21st pick by the Carolina Panthers here in the 4th round. Again, I'm not thinking he's going to really steal much away from Christian McCaffrey. We saw it last year. Mike Davis barely got any carries when McCaffrey was healthy, but McCaffrey does have a little bit of an injury history. If he goes down, I think Chuba Hubbard is the perfect fill-in guy here for McCaffrey. So if I have him, he's the guy that I'm definitely drafting. Your thoughts on Hubbard?
He's a great 0 RB target. If like you said, if McCaffrey goes down, he really has no standalone value. They ride McCaffrey in Carolina. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but I think Carolina views him as the backup to McCaffrey, and if he's the first man up, we saw how productive Mike Davis was last year, right? He put up an RB1 season in Carolina, and I think Chuba could put up respectable numbers. He could fill in as your RB2 if McCaffrey goes down, so that's fine.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's where I think it is. Like if you're a McCaffrey owner, you have a target. At least in my mind, you have a target in the rookie draft. I don't think he's going rounds 1 or 2, maybe late 3, early 4. And at that point, I'm fine grabbing him because I feel a lot of these players we were hyped for, running back and wide receiver wise, didn't quite get the draft capital or even really the landing spots we were hoping for pre-draft process. So I'm not as high on as many of these players as I was coming into the draft. I've soured on a lot of guys, which I hate saying because I try not to let landing spot affect things for me as much, but some of it being just draft capital. I mean, we saw a lot of guys we were talking about, during rounds 2 and 3, we thought would have already gone off the board. And then we're seeing I'll just throw this out, the Tutu Atwells of the world jumping them. And you're just like, what is going on? So I am a little worried about some of these guys. So if I have McCaffrey, he's a guy that I'm willing to grab maybe a little bit earlier than others, just because I'd be a little bit worried about McCaffrey staying healthy for 16 games. And as you mentioned, I think with that offensive scheme and the skill set Hubbard has, he can bring you back RB2 value. So that's a good replacement to have. Kenneth Gainwell, he is a guy that we thought could easily go, or we were hearing rumors of like round 3, even round 2 draft capital. He goes as the 6th pick in the 5th round to the Philadelphia Eagles. I tweeted out, I thought it was an interesting spot. And I think you replied back as like the replacement for Boston Scott, which I think could be like where he slides in. But Miles Sanders gets hurt a lot too. And I wonder if Gainwell maybe is a guy that could fill in for him. Again, I don't think he's the greatest runner. I know he weighed in over 200 pounds at his pro day. He's not playing over 200 pounds. It's one thing I hate about pro day because great, he comes in over 200 pounds, still runs a really good 40. Rarely is he running 40 straight yards without getting touched by anybody. He's not doing it in shorts or a t-shirt last I checked, and he's not going to play at over 200 pounds this season. So I think he's going to be a good back. I don't think he has anywhere near the value or the capital we thought coming into the draft.
No, I tend to agree with you there. I really was surprised he went round 5. That's pretty tough for him. I mean, that's not a range where you're going to see a lot of productive running backs. I mean, I think Aaron Jones is maybe the only round 5 hit, but I waffled on him earlier because I thought he was a good pass catcher, but he's an okay prospect, I think. Like I said yesterday, I think he's Boston Scott replacement. I don't think he had particularly awesome film. Being in the Memphis system, there were just holes opening it for him. He was running through them. He doesn't really also, like you said, right? He weighed in around 202-ish. Mm-hmm. He does not play at that size, and he does not play even close to that size. He gets knocked down so easily. I think he has okay contact balance, but he just you see him get pummeled all the time when he's running. It's a weird situation. I mean, he's supposed to be a good pass catcher too, but he has a lot of drops, and they're technique drops too. Like, he has good hands, but he doesn't have good catching technique, and I think that's interesting. Add that Jalen Hurts is a mobile quarterback who doesn't really throw the ball. Like, I don't really know what Gainwell's upside is unless it's exclusively a Sanders fill-in, and they still have Jordan Howard there, so maybe he's a third down back who isn't very good at pass protection. Like I saw a lot of hype for him yesterday when it happened, and I don't really get it with Gainwell. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm pretty sure he was my RB6. Now, I had Jamar over him, which hurts, but I had Trey Sermon over him. He got the draft capital and I think a really good landing spot. I'm with you. For me, the biggest thing was how well he did in the receiving game, especially after actually catching the ball. Like, he can be a very dynamic player after getting the ball. And the other thing I'll add, not only obviously Jalen Hurts is his quarterback, a running quarterback, we've got a new head coach and a new offense coming in here too. So we don't know that it's going to be as split up as it was with Doug Peterson, who wasn't always giving Miles Sanders the ball. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to be one of those people who doesn't get much Gainwell in any of my rookie drafts, because I feel like people, as you mentioned, I saw it too, everybody hyping it up on Twitter. I think people are going to reach for him in the second round, especially within those leagues where people overrate running backs. And I'm going to be just fine with people taking him there and just kind of going about my day, because I think he's a good player, but I like Miles Sanders. I just don't know what to think about this team in general. I don't even know if Jalen Hurts will be the quarterback next year. So I'm kind of passing on Gainwell. All right, so I'm just going to kind of read off the next couple guys, and if there's anyone you want to circle back and talk to, you can. I don't know. I don't feel like there's much value with any of these guys. So you got Elijah Mitchell, who goes with the 10th pick in the 6th round to the 49ers. Gary Brightwell with the 12th pick in the 6th round to the New York Giants. Larry Roundtree III with the 14th pick in the 6th round to the Los Angeles Chargers. I saw a lot of people hyping him up, so I do want to ask you a question about that. Chris Evans in the 6th round at the 18th pick to the Bengals. Khalil Herbert in the 6th round at the 33rd pick to the Chicago Bears. So Larry Roundtree, there were a lot of people who liked him as well coming out of college, coming out of Missouri. He had some decent stats and everything. And so a lot of people saying, oh, well, him going there, got Justin Jackson. Who am I forgetting? He had a really good year last year, the rookie. Joshua Kelly out of UCLA. And then they're like, and I think this is a guy who could push Austin Eckler is what I saw some people saying. Am I wrong in thinking that's a crazy statement? Like, Larry Roundtree is an okay running back, but Austin Eckler, I mean, I know he deals with injury issues, but he's one of the best running backs in the league, in my opinion.
That's absurd. I can't imagine that Roundtree does anything except maybe push like Justin Jackson for his job. And I like Justin Jackson too. I think Joshua Kelly's okay too. Like, I think they're both better than Roundtree. And it's not like Roundtree got great draft capital where we're worried about it. I mean, he's a 6th rounder. Like, what are we supposed to do? I thought he was okay coming out. I wasn't super high on him, but it's a okay landing spot, and he's an okay back. I just don't really know where he fits in the scheme, unless they're planning on moving on from Jackson next year, or didn't like what they saw with Kelly last year. He had some productive games. I don't think there's a fit there for him.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That's when I saw some people talking about, I was like, I don't really understand that. I mean, I guess that could make sense, like you mentioned, if they move on from Jackson next year. Okay, he's got a spot, but from everything I've seen, I've not seen Eckler kind of fading off at all. So I don't know why you would think they'd even start moving away from him in that offense. Herbert's a guy that obviously I liked. We had Brandon Hay on a lot as well throughout the day 2 of our coverage. He was a big fan of Herbert as well. I don't hate the landing spot for him. My biggest thing is that I think he could be a guy who fills in for Tariq Cohen if they decide to move on from him, or if they end up moving on from Montgomery at some point. I know he's still on his rookie contract and they decide to go with those two, but unfortunately, I don't see much for him here. He was a guy I was really hoping could get like round 4 draft capital. That obviously did not happen. So is there any of those guys before we get on to the guys in round 7? Because there's 3 guys that are interesting, at least with some of their skill sets. Is there anybody else in round 6 you want to talk about?
Nah, none of those guys really interest me. I don't think they have a spot on most teams.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell is going to be the one a lot of people want to talk about, but I just Trey Sermon, Jeff Wilson, who else they still have technically Mostert there. So I wonder, and oh man, what's his name? They drafted him, was it last year, 2 years ago? Oh, I can't think of his name now. Everybody was excited about him. I want to say it wasn't SMU, was it, or Baylor? I can't remember. But he's like
Michael Hasty?
Yeah, Hasty. There we go. Yeah, everybody was excited about him too, and now they add Elijah Mitchell to that backfield. So I know he had to really get great pro day with the speed and everything. I don't know.
Yeah, that backfield's so crowded all the time, and there's such rotation.
All right, so 7th round. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I had not even heard of this player. Jake Funk goes with the 5th pick in the 7th round out of Maryland to the Rams, and then these next 3 are at least bigger names and are interesting. So we'll talk about them. Jared Dokes out of Cincinnati with the 17th pick in the 7th round. So we know, I know, and I know that you know that there's probably very little, if anybody, who's ever hit in the 7th round at running back. We see some undrafted free agents, so that's fair to say they're right around the same area. The one thing that is interesting me for Dokes is I thought he was a good running back out of Cincinnati. I thought him and Jerome Ford were a good little duo there. And I think Dokes brings a little bit of a different gameplay. He's a bigger back with good burst and good contact balance, which is a little bit different than what Salvon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin bring. So I think he could carve out a role. Now, I'm not saying he could be I would say at best an RB3 for fantasy, but he is one that I could see sticking on a roster and possibly doing something there with Gaskin and Ahmed, all 3 of them, not him becoming the starter, but working with those 2. Do you have any thoughts on Dokes?
I don't know. I don't really like any of the guys there all that much. Gaskin looked nice last year, and people seem to love him. So it is what it is. I wasn't the biggest Dokes fan coming out. I thought he was fine, but he does have nice burst. I think he had an 87th percentile burst score. So that's nice. I mean, he has a little bit of athleticism and an all right speed score. So he's at least not the least athletic back in the backfield. So that's a plus.
All right, next one, Kylan Hill. I mean, this was a guy that some people had as like their RB3, 4, 5 pre-draft process. Doesn't go until the 7th round, pick 29 with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, I do think that there's a lot to like about Hill's game. It's just concerning that he falls. This was probably one of the bigger surprises to me because he's shown, in my opinion, that he can be a very good runner. He's quick to get through the hole. I think he does have really good speed. And he showed us last year that he actually can catch the ball and can be a really good receiver and then opted out. So I'm not sure if this is an off-the-field thing that caused him to drop this far. We did hear a lot of rumors. There was a lot going on there off the field at Mississippi State, but nothing came out that he did anything, just a lot of disagreements with coaches. I don't even know what to think. My biggest thing is here, we just talked about it earlier with where Matt LaFleur comes from, that Kyle Shanahan offensive tree. We know Aaron Jones is likely going to be at least the 1A with the contract that they paid him and the offense they're going to run. We know we're going to see A.J. Dillon, and even last year at times we saw all 3 of them being used. So I don't expect Kylan Hill to ever be at best anything more than an RB3 unless one of those 2 gets hurt. But again, it's hard to see any path to real playing time with Dillon and Jones ahead of him.
Yeah, he was a guy that was interesting-ish before the draft, really before the year. I think some people really liked him, but he didn't test super well. He ran adjusted 4.6. He isn't super athletic. I think he doesn't have like great wiggle. And he was an okay pass catcher through 3 years. And then the Mike Leach always throw it to your running back system came in. And I think he just benefited off of that. Because, I mean, we saw Jaquavius Marks catch like 70 passes last year. And I think Kylan Hill just happened to be right place, right time. So I think that kind of elevated him in a lot of pre-draft processes that it unfairly did. Green Bay is an okay spot because they don't really have anybody behind like A.J. Dillon. And maybe they view him as like the third guy who can come in and do a couple things and operate on third down some because A.J. Dillon doesn't really catch passes. So maybe that's the role they have for him, but he's at least somewhat interesting. I mean, he's not the least interesting running back.
Yeah. All right. So the last guy, again, this is my guy. I'm gonna let you go first because I'm gonna be 100% biased on this. But Jamar Jefferson, 30th pick in the 7th round. So I mean, we're talking literally pretty much the end of the draft here. And of course, I would love to have even like made some kind of bold statement on him possibly doing something on this roster. And then he goes to the Detroit Lions, of all teams, where behind DeAndre Swift, behind Kerryon Johnson. So your thoughts on Jefferson? Does he have any value for you whatsoever?
No, not at all. He's a terrible athlete, just an awful athlete. And he has had 1 year of production that made me go, okay. And then never did anything again. I just think his athleticism is like in the bottom percentile for a lot of things. It's just brutal. I liked him in the pre-draft process as well. Like I had him kind of at my RB5 ish, and the NFL basically said we don't value you, and his athletic testing was kind of supported that.
Yeah, I'm curious as to if I know it's maybe I'm just sticking up for him, but I wonder if the athletic testing on his pro day came down to just having one of those bad days, because some of the stuff that we saw I did not see on film. And again, it also is hard to see it, but like that 3-cone drill, someone was talking about it when it came out, like that's not even good for like an offensive lineman. And when you see him hit some of these holes and the lateral speed he shows in the backfield, I think it's better than that. But regardless, you're right. I mean, whether that is his real testing numbers or not, that clearly, I think, hurt his case some to drop into the 7th round. And again, Detroit, look, maybe if he went to like a Miami, like we just talked about with Dopes, I would have some kind of argument. But as much as I love Jamar, I'm going to go ahead and say he's not a better athlete than DeAndre Swift. And I would even go as far to say I don't think he's much better than Kerryon. So you're hoping for at least 2 injuries, if not 1. And even then, I don't know what Detroit's new offense is going to look like. It's kind of hard to think he's going to do anything. I will be honest, I'm still taking a shot on him at the very end of my rookie draft as my last pick, or maybe I'm picking him up off the free agent wire. But he's a guy that I still believe in. But at this point, he's not going to be nearly as productive or what I hoped for pre-draft process, like you were just saying. I mean, I had him at 4 pre-draft process, so I was high on him. I really thought he had a chance to be good, and clearly the NFL does not value him that way, like you just said, with him going in the 7th round. So he's either a project or someone you should probably end up fading altogether. All right, wide receivers, 4th round, 4th pick, Dez Fitzpatrick out of Louisville to the Tennessee Titans. What are your thoughts?
That might have been the worst pick of the draft.
Even worse than Tutu?
Okay, maybe not. Worst pick around 4. I'll give you that much.
Okay.
I thought he might go undrafted. I'm surprised that he was not only drafted, but that he went in the 4th. I don't know what the Titans were doing. That's a bad valuation of talent. He was not productive. He didn't really hit any of the analytical marks that we're looking for. He's not really a great route runner. He's inconsistent with his play. I don't really like Dez Fitzpatrick, and I was surprised to see him go round 4. That shocked me.
So I'll say that what I have here is he has good speed, really good body control, and attacks the ball at the high point, and good arms. Like he's got a big wingspan. So I don't know if that's something maybe they're going to use him as like a contested catch guy or whatever. I'm with you. I think with the next couple of guys here that went like the 4th or 5th round, I would have taken over Dez Fitzpatrick. But I know he had like a massive Senior Bowl week, so I don't know if maybe that helped boost his stock up a little bit more. We've seen that happen in the past. I don't want to compare him to this player, but we saw kind of like that meteoric rise for a Terry McLaurin because of what he did at senior week. And I'm not saying Fitzpatrick is, in my opinion, anywhere near Terry McLaurin, but maybe that's what helped Tennessee get so high on him. I don't know, but I'm with you. I'm kind of like, and I'll say I hope people, again, reach for him in their rookie drafts because he went higher than some of these other guys. I'm like, oh, he's going to Tennessee, and they thought he was this and then because some people base straight off like draft capital and everything. So I hope they do it. The next guy, I was really surprised to see him fall into the 4th round, but in the end of the day, I thought this was a great landing spot. 7th pick in the 4th round, Amon-Ra St. Brown goes to the Lions. He doesn't have the biggest speed. Not the biggest guy either, but I think he plays with really good body control. I think he's really good in running his routes. He does a good job of taking the top off the coverage as well. Great hands, will attack those 50-50 balls like we just saw with Dez Fitzpatrick. And I think goes into an offense with not a really secure wide receiver 1 either. I mean, Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perriman, and Quintez Cephas don't, scare anybody. So I think Amon-Ra is one of those guys here in the late rounds that could end up producing here in the 4th round. What are your thoughts on him?
This was my favorite day 3 pick. He has great analytical numbers, right? He hit weighted dominator marks year 1 and 2. He hit yards per team pass attempt, which shows efficiency. So not only was he securing a large market share, he was also efficient while doing so, which is difficult to do in the context of USC's offense. So that was impressive. I think his role, the next level, might be as a slot guy who can succeed similarly to, and I saw Matt Harmon say this, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Cooper Kupp's usage in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So he had an 82.9% success rate on slants, and he was more than above average on outbreaking routes. So that's the type of player that Kupp kind of is as well. So like where they succeed is very similar. So if they want to take the same philosophy, because now the general manager from the Rams. So I really like it. I mean, it's an open room, and I think he's better than Quintez Cephas, and I think he's probably better than Tyrell Williams. So DJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift are probably your primary blockers for targets. But I wasn't the biggest on Amon-Ra because he wasn't insanely productive, but I think it's a good spot. I think he hit enough analytical markers where I'm definitely interested in him. Yeah. But I'm also not willing to reach on him, knowing that he's still a day 3 pick.
Yeah. Where's kind of the sweet spot for you in drafts? I mean, I'd imagine just based on what we saw with some of the running backs, especially because we mostly play in super flex. So you're also talking about at least the 5 QBs going off in the 1st round. 2 of the tight ends got really good draft capital as well in Pitts and Freiermuth. And then you've got a lot of wide receivers that were drafted ahead of them. We're not big on some of these guys, but again, you might see a person who's like, well, hell, Tutu Atwell got drafted in the 2nd round. He's going to the Rams, and Sean McVay knows offense, so they may reach on him. So say you're talking end of 2nd round, early 3rd. Is that kind of the sweet spot for you to pull the trigger on an Amon-Ra St. Brown?
I'd probably take him in the early 3rd. So just based on some data I've seen today on early rookie drafts, he's going too high for me. He's going mid-2nd just based on the opportunity, and I don't really like that. I think that's too high. He's still a day 3 wide receiver. The NFL said we're not really interested in you on day 2, and that's a big red flag. For example, I think 25. So 5% of day 3 wide receivers in the last 25 years have hit for wide receiver 2 or better. So you're looking at a 1 in 20 chance of a hit. Those are
one of the next guys we're going to talk about. One of these guys that we're going to talk about here is going to hit out of it seems like 20 guys that got drafted in these last couple rounds. All right, this one I was a little excited for because I liked what I saw out of him on tape, but then I heard a Bruce Arians interview, and I'm completely fading him because I also think some people will reach for him, and that's Jalen Darden out of North Texas. He goes with the 24th pick in the 4th round. Obviously, he's got a ton of speed. I mean, probably one of the faster guys in this draft class. And I thought, obviously going to a loaded wide receiver room, but you're likely going to lose Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin after this year. I don't know what Scotty Miller's contract looks like. Mike Evans is signed, but Mike Evans, I think, is kind of moving. I don't want to say the back end of his career, but I don't think he's going to be quite the elite talent he has been. All that being said, and then I heard Bruce Arians give an interview on day 3 where he is talking about, we really just wanted to get that special teams guy that we could trust to kind of, bring his speed and versatile to punt returns and kick returns. And that's kind of faded him a little bit for me. Do you have any thoughts on Darden being a fantasy guy in the near future?
No, I don't want to say he's no shot because I don't know what can happen, but very little. I wasn't high on him anyway. He was unproductive for like 3 years and then really came onto the scene. So Jalen Guyton was out producing him for 2 years. Jalen Darden's not a guy that I was really impressed by, but he's like a worse version of Scotty Miller. Like they do a lot of the same things, except I think Scotty Miller is a little bit better. So Darden's okay, but like you said, I think he's a special teams guy. There's no fit for him. He's at least 6th on the depth chart behind Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, and Antonio Brown, and plus the big 2. Like they brought everybody back. The upside for him is in the return game, and maybe he flashes and then long-term works his way up the depth chart. But you're talking about a guy who's already, I think, 23 or at least 22. And I mean, what's his upside in 3 years? He's a guy a lot of people liked. I was never really in, and I'm even less so now.
Felix disagrees with what I said there. So Scotty Miller is the fastest player, one of the fastest players in the NFL. Darden is the deep threat. I guess I don't technically disagree with that. I don't see much of any kind of value for Darden here. So, like I said, I thought about when it happened. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then once I heard the Arians interview, I'm like, yeah, that I think that kind of pours cold water on what anybody was hoping for. The next pick here was with the 26th pick in the 4th round to the Baltimore Ravens. They grabbed Tylan Wallace out of Oklahoma State, which was interesting because it felt like they kind of doubled up on those receivers that are complete opposites of Marquise Hollywood Brown, with grabbing Bateman earlier in the 1st round and now Wallace here in the 4th. Had they not grabbed Bateman, I would be a little bit more excited about this pick for Wallace. I'm not sure what I think about it, so I'm going to get your opinion on what you think about Wallace going here.
He was a guy that I liked because he posted monster age-adjusted production through 3 years, and then 2 years towards ACL, and then came back. So I didn't like that he stayed for his senior year. I think that was kind of a flag that he's probably not a day 2 pick, and we probably should have adjusted back then. So that's the senior red flag that I talk about a lot, but I'm not sure really where he fits in Baltimore exactly. So him and Bateman are somewhat they'll play kind of a similar role in the offense. I don't think Tylan Wallace is like a tweener almost. Like he plays much bigger than he is, and I don't think that's really going to work as well at the next level. But he's okay. I don't think he's going to jump Bateman. I don't think he's going to jump Hollywood. I don't think he's going to jump Sammy Watkins until Watkins gets injured. Yeah. You still have Willie Snead, I think, on the team. They like Devin Duvernay.
No, they let go of Willie Snead. There you go.
Yeah. So maybe Duvernay will slide into the Snead role. But where does he fit? He's like wide receiver 4 in the depth chart. I assume he's going to be ahead of Boykin. Boykin hasn't shown him enough, but he's a guy with age-adjusted production. So if you're taking a dart throw on one of these guys, maybe it's Tylan Wallace, maybe it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. But yeah, I just don't see it. And it's not a productive passing offense. So.
All right, with the next pick, 36th pick in the 4th round, Jacob Harris out of UCF goes to the Rams. I don't see much here. I assume you agree with that. I'm not.
Well, I kind of like it a little teeny bit. He was announced as a tight end. So,
I did not know that. Okay.
So he's athletic. He's fairly athletic, and the Rams have Gerald Everett. And last year, I think they brought in another one of the draft tight ends. But
Higbee. I think they let go of Everett. I think it's just Higbee.
Oh, sorry, other way around. Yeah.
They
still have Higbee on that contract. Everett signed to Seattle, but I think it's an open competition maybe for the tight end too. I think they have Moon, who is a blocking tight end mostly, but Harris is athletic, and I mean, there were a lot of people talking him out throughout the process. I don't really know if he's going to be he needs to put on a little bit of weight still, but it's at least a little teeny bit interesting because he's an athletic tight end. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't even know that he was coming in as a tight end. So that does make him at least a little bit interesting because what I have, I'm not even I'm just going to read what they put about him because I did not know much about him. I was just kind of looking through stuff as we knew we were going to do this. And they say that he's got really good speed for his size. So I think last he weighed in was 6'5", 211. So if he's got really good speed and they use him in some kind of tight end thing, I mean, we know the one thing I will say about McVay is the dude knows how to scheme people open and do stuff so that he could be a very interesting tight end target then. A guy who a lot of people liked, Amir Smith-Marset out of Iowa. He goes with the 13th pick in the 5th round to the Vikings. I kind of like him. My issue is I just don't know how involved in the offense he'll be. You've got Adam Thielen there. You've got Justin Jefferson. Rarely do we even see the tight ends get involved in this offense, much less a wide receiver 3 with how often they run the ball with Dalvin Cook. So while I like him, I don't see much for him until maybe if Adam Thielen moves on and he becomes the guy opposite of Justin Jefferson. And even then, I don't know when that's going to happen. So do you have any thoughts on Marset?
He wasn't really a guy that I was really even on my radar before the draft. He is a late breakout who's like a 21st percentile speed score. And it's not really a great landing spot. They aren't a pass heavy offense, and they still have BC Johnson there, who's probably their wide receiver 3. And I mean, it's just such a narrow target share that I don't. He's probably a special teams player. That's probably the goal there.
So I'm just going to kind of read off the. I guess we can go through all of them. I don't see much for Simi here out of Stanford. 35th pick in the 5th round to Dallas Cowboys. A loaded wide receiver room. I don't even if they do have Dak throw it 600 times. I don't see much for Simi. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's just they have a lot of depth at the position.
Yeah. Cornell Powell goes to the Chiefs here out of Clemson. Now, he was a guy who was getting a lot of hype after his pro day with the speed that he ran at. Obviously, he had some production at Clemson, but not anything I think that was, outstanding. And I do think people are going to pump him up because he's going to the Chiefs, and everybody just assumes he's going to be good. Do you have any thoughts on him being, I don't even know what to say, like a wide receiver 2 or 3 for fantasy moving forward?
I don't think we would even know his name if the other guys didn't get injured at Clemson this year. I mean, I don't think he didn't have more than a 5% target share through 3 years, and then doesn't even break out this year. I have no interest in Cornell Powell. I don't think he's very good.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say for Powell, because I saw a lot of people, it was mostly the people who were pumping up before the draft. When he goes to the Chiefs, they were all pumping him up again. And I'll just point out, he reminds me a lot of Demarcus Robinson. And we saw, all this love and hype for Demarcus Robinson when he came out, goes to the Chiefs. And obviously that was before Mahomes became Mahomes. But now Mahomes becomes this and Demarcus Robinson's finally going to break out. He never did. I think this is a Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce offense. Is Powell probably going to have some good games here and there? Yeah, absolutely, because you're going to find some defenses who find a way to shut down one or the other or possibly both, and then they lean on Powell for that one game a season. I don't see him ever really being much more outside of that, though. Frank Darby was a guy that was very interesting to a lot of people, including myself out of Arizona State. We did not get to see him play much this year due to injuries and the Pac-12 only playing 5 games. For the most part, he goes off the board with the 3rd pick in the 6th round to the Falcons, which I do think is an interesting spot because they have Julio and they have Calvin Ridley. They do throw the ball a lot due to how bad their defense is. I don't really have any faith in any of the other wide receivers on that roster. So if he can pass those guys, I do think he could be like a middle, low-end wide receiver 3. I mean, I'm not calling him to be anything massive, but I think he has some value. He's a guy that I'd be intrigued to draft. Do you have any, high-end concerns or possibly positive stuff on Darby?
I don't have anything positive. I'll just say that I'm not his biggest
okay.
fan.
Yeah.
Not a great athlete. He ran adjusted 4.66, didn't really test well anywhere else, and was a age 22 breakout. Just not a player I'm really interested in. I think Olamide Zaccheaus is probably better than him. So okay. I like to see Zaccheaus get a shot. Or Russell Gage. Russell Gage is probably better than him too. Maybe they envisioned him somewhere on special teams, and that's kind of the role. But he's got a hill to climb in that passing order to really make a mark.
Marquez Stevenson out of Houston with the 19th pick in the 6th round. I'm going to be honest, I didn't understand this one that much, mostly because I love Isaiah Hodgins out of oh man, damn it. Now I forgot what school he came out of for some reason. It was Pac-12, and now I can't think of it. Oregon State. There we go. I couldn't remember for a second. Oregon State, I loved his hands. I think he does everything that Marquez Stevenson does. So I don't know if maybe this is an indictment on him. Regardless, loaded wide receiver room, even though people may not think that, with Diggs, you got Beasley, they brought in Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think Marquez Stevenson sees the field much, if at all, this year. We didn't see much of those guys switching out. And I don't know, even though Allen threw the ball a lot more last year, he does run the ball a lot. They keep talking about wanting to lean more on the run game as well. So it's not a great spot for me. I like Stevenson coming out, but I'm just kind of, in all honesty, out of everybody else we're about to talk about, I'm just kind of I don't really have good or bad feelings. It's just kind of whatever.
Yeah, he's fine. Like that's all I can say. He's a fairly okay athlete. He's got a really great agility score. So, I think he could play some slot if called upon. But like you said, there's 3 guys ahead of him plus Gabe Davis, and I don't know where Hodgins ranks on that. So,
oh yeah, I forgot about Gabriel Davis too. Yeah, so. This is one that had Terrace Marshall not gone here in the 2nd round, I might have been a little bit more intrigued with, and that's Shi Smith out of South Carolina with the 20th pick in the 6th round to the Carolina Panthers. I don't have much. He'll be a guy. Maybe I'll take a shot on 4th round of rookie drafts, but I'm not expecting much because he's not beating out Robbie Anderson. He's not beating out DJ Moore. And even though I'm not the biggest Terrace Marshall guy, I don't see him beating out Marshall either.
No, I'm happy for Shi Smith as a South Carolina alum. I'm, good for him, and he gets to stay local. Yeah. He's a South Carolina kid, so awesome story. I think it was interesting what he said yesterday when he said that he felt he dropped because of character concerns, and I'd never heard of those. But if that's true, I may be a little more interested. Maybe he could have been like an early round 4 guy instead. I don't think he would have stuck into day 2, but a lot of people liked him, and he was actually like pretty good his first year at South Carolina when he was competing with both Brian Edwards and Debo. And when he had the field to himself this year, he took off. I think he plays as a big wide receiver, even though he's not very big. So I think he's a tweener also at the next level, but I'm happy for him. And I think he's probably the 4th best wide receiver in Carolina. I think he's better than like Omar Bayless. So,
I agree with you on that. Yeah, he's definitely the 4th. It's just, like I said, had they not drafted Terrace Marshall, I'd be a lot more excited about this pick. But even though I'm not the biggest Terrace Marshall fan, I think he's definitely the guy who kind of comes in as probably going to be the slot guy. And I really, Robbie Anderson, we'll see. I don't know how long his contract is there. I think it may only be a couple more years. And then DJ Moore, I think, is an absolute stud. So, right now, at least I think he's a little blocked on the wide receiver depth chart. With the 21st pick in the 6th round was Racey McMath out of LSU to Tennessee. I mean, this dude just got speed, but I think he is the perfect guy they brought in to be like a special teams guy. I think Fitzpatrick, we talked about earlier, he was the first guy we talked about, is probably going to be on the field. McMath, I think, is more of just going to be a special teams guy.
Yeah, I have no interest in him. I will say, though, it sucks that his analytics are bad because having math in your name and having a good analytical profile would have been awesome.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He'd be a smash hit for all the analytics guys, at least at the end, just as that dart throw guy, right? Maybe you don't take him like the 2nd or 3rd round, but, just to have him on your roster.
He was, to be fair, he was also a all-name team for the NFL draft. Racey McMath is a fantastic name in general.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. With the 25th pick in the 6th round went Jalen Camp out of Georgia Tech to the Jaguars. No interest for me. They've got a lot of good wide receivers on that depth chart. I'm still not sure, they're going to be a pass-heavy offense, even though they do have a good quarterback there in Trevor Lawrence now. Urban Meyer has always been a run-heavy offense.
Yeah, no interest. I was surprised he went as high as he did. I was surprised he was drafted, to be honest.
With the 27th pick, the Cleveland Browns took Demetric Felton in the 6th round. We know, obviously, there was a lot of talk about where he would play, running back, wide receiver. I'm going to be honest, I did not see what the Browns said they were going to have him play. Regardless, I don't think whichever way he goes, running back or wide receiver is going to be helpful for him. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are much better running backs than him. And if they do have him playing wide receiver, I think same thing. Browns have a really good wide receiver room. I don't see him jumping any of those guys even with them bringing in Schwartz. I know maybe Felton's a little bit more refined receiver than Schwartz, but Schwartz brings a different element than anybody else in that room, which is why I think he'll get on the field. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was drafted in the 6th round last year, more than I like Felton. So right now I would think Felton's probably more of just a special teams guy. That's one thing that the Browns have been lacking. They have not had anybody who's been good in kick or punt returns the past couple seasons.
Yeah, his only upside is as a special teamer. He had one of the worst athletic testing numbers throughout the class. I mean, 7th percentile speed score, 5th percentile burst score, 6th percentile agility score, 1st percentile catch radius. Brutal numbers.
Yeah. Seth Williams, he's a guy, again, a lot of people thought, they were blaming his, I don't want to say his bad play, because I don't think he played bad in college, but the bad numbers that he put up in his production on Bo Nix. He goes with the 35th pick in the 6th round to the Denver Broncos, wide receiver out of Auburn. I don't really know what to think about this. I saw some people saying, okay, it's a decent landing spot, especially if Drew Lock becomes what some of us hope he is, but I for sure think Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are ahead of him. And even if he finds a way to get on the field as like the third wide receiver, you got Noah Fant there as well, who I think is a phenomenal tight end. Williams is a guy I think you could probably get late in your rookie drafts because he went in the 6th round of the NFL draft. And he does go to what I think could be a good offensive team. And you got Javonte Williams. I forgot who they just drafted, who I think who will demand some targets out of the backfield at least. So Seth Williams is a guy that I might target late in rookie drafts, 4th round pick or something like that. But I don't see much upside for him as of now.
No, I agree. The analytics community really liked him. And I think because his numbers were really good. Like it's just true. He was very productive, but his film was just not very good. And I think a lot of people blamed it on Bo Nix when a lot of it is also, Seth Williams' fault. But it's a crowded wide receiver room. He has Hamler and the 2 big guys, and now he's Fant and Alberto to compete with. I mean, I don't really know what his upside is, and he's not really going to be a special teamer. So maybe he sticks in as like the last wide receiver in Denver and jumps Deshaun Hamilton. But
yeah, I don't think that part will be that hard to jump Hamilton.
Yeah, really. But yeah, he's a guy I'll take a swing on because his metrics are good, but he needs to come a long way in terms of development, and maybe he can, but he's not a guy that I'm drafting or targeting early at all.
Yeah. I mean, he could be a guy like you just mentioned too with the good analytics. Maybe a guy we've seen. We've been talking about, do we see anything in the near future? And we have to remember that some of these wide receivers may not produce for 3 years. So maybe Seth Williams does in 3 years. That's what used to be the wide receiver trend is you don't see these guys produce for 3 years. And then we had that, I think it was a 2014 or 15 class with Odell and Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Jarvis Landry, where all these guys hit so quickly that we all got in our minds all of a sudden, hey, these wide receivers need to hit year 1. Seth Williams, I'm with you, is a guy I'll stash, and, maybe in a couple years he ends up doing something in Denver. So I would take a shot on him, as I probably would the next guy who, we've seen a lot of rumors that Anthony Miller might be moved. They didn't do it in the draft, which is what we all heard might happen. So I don't know if he still will, but Daz Newsome out of North Carolina, 37th pick in the 6th round here. Some people really liked him, him paired with De'Ami Brown. I think some of his breakout stuff came because of how much Sam Howell was throwing the ball and how good Sam Howell was. But again, if they move on from Anthony Miller, I do see some kind of upside here for Newsome. Do you?
Yeah, he's kind of unique in that offense, right? Like, there's not really someone who can do a good job playing the slot role. So, I mean, he's a unique fit, and I like Daz Newsome some. I don't think he had the best profile, but I think he's an all right wide receiver, and I think he could probably add an element that offense is missing with Mooney as a field stretcher and Robinson as a possession wide receiver. So, it's a good landing spot for opportunity because there's not really a third wide receiver there, especially if they move on from Miller.
Yeah. All right. So I don't think any of these next 5 guys here have much value. So I'll read them off. I did have a question on one guy, but that's for one reason. So Mike Stratton out of West Virginia, first pick in the 7th round. Trey Nixon out of UCF, 15th pick. Oh, I'm sorry. Stratton goes to the Colts. 15th pick in the 7th round goes to the New England Patriots. Ben I don't even know how to say his last name. Showrenek out of Notre Dame with the 22nd pick in the 7th round goes to the LA Rams. Quan Baker out of South Alabama goes with the 28th pick in the 7th round to the Saints. And then Dax Milne, who, again, we saw break out. Maybe that had to do more with Zach Wilson than anything else, out of BYU to the Washington football team with the 31st pick in the 7th round. He is a guy that I think just because of his name and him playing with Zach Wilson will get at least some hype. Would you be willing to draft Dax?
No.
No, I'm with you. I thought I'd ask just in case.
The one player I will say that I think is interesting out of that group, though, is Strachan.
Okay.
I think is how you pronounce it. Really athletic and posted a really I'm like a 97th percentile college dominator. He's out of Charleston Southern, so it's not like was against a big competition, but athletic wide receiver who, the Colts depth chart, I think there's a lot of guys there who are just guys. So
yeah.
It's kind of reminiscent of when they brought in Ashton Dulin, small school mega producer who's pretty athletic, but he's a guy that I definitely have on my radar. I think he had like 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns his last season. So
okay,
he's someone at the very end of rookie drafts or UDFA in the rookie or the free agency after the rookie draft that I'm targeting.
All right. So last but not least, the tight ends. So in the fourth round, John Bates out of Boise State goes with the 19th pick in the fourth round to the Washington football team. I don't really have any interest here. I mean, they have Logan Thomas, who I think is really, as a former quarterback, really shown that he can be a good tight end. They also brought in, I believe, no, he moved on. I don't think they actually have another tight end, or maybe they do, and I can't think of who it is. But I'm not sold on Bates really being much for fantasy there. Do you?
No, I don't really know what his upside is in that offense.
I have down here that he's really good at blocking, but I didn't put anything like passing or receiving game wise. So I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know either. That's all I have for him.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit of a stretch when the pick was made.
With the 22nd pick in the fourth round, Kylan Granson out of SMU goes to the Colts. He's a little bit intriguing. He was more of like an H-back player in college, 6'2", 241. So he is close to that size that's interesting, at least for a tight end that plays in that. I know I've talked with Colin a lot. Like he likes to see that like 230, 240 range. So he's kind of close to that with the 235. Very good field stretcher. He can get by defenders. He's got size and strength. But the biggest thing I noticed, I'm pretty sure they talked about it on the broadcast as well, he dropped like a lot of just like concentration catches, like not anything difficult with SMU. So that worries me a little bit. But again, going to Indianapolis, you're hoping to have a really good offense with Carson Wentz there. No real big tight end on the depth chart there ahead of him. Does he intrigue you at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I think part of it is the opportunity. Jack Doyle. I love Mo Alley-Cox. I'm not sure the Mo Alley-Cox dream is ever going to happen, but Jack Doyle's there too, and the rumors about Zach Ertz, I have no idea if that's actually going to come to fruition. But Granson's all right. He isn't. This matters less for tight ends, but he was an age 18 breakout, which is fairly interesting, and he's pretty athletic. I mean, he posted a nice burst score and agility score, so I'm interested in him a little bit. His 16 yards per reception, also in college, like you said, he's a good field stretcher for a tight end. He very interesting in the fourth round. I think, especially in tight end premium leagues, like he's a guy that you can target maybe in the late third, early fourth, and just hope that he kind of ascends the depth chart.
Oh yeah, he's a guy I don't expect to go early. So yeah, if like I said, with that kind of profile, I guess for tight end, that makes it even more interesting. Again, going to an offense that's looking for someone who might be able to help kind of create mismatches there at the tight end position. Luke Farrell gets taken off the board with the first pick in the fifth round out of the Ohio State University to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't see much here for Farrell. He was always kind of more of like the blocking tight end for the Buckeyes. Now, he does have decent hands, but I just don't expect much out of him, although the Jags needed a tight end, and so they did get one, but I don't see him being much in this offense. Do you have any thoughts on Farrell?
No, I really know very little about him, so I did a little bit of research on him when we were prepping for today, but he's not a guy I'm interested in really at all. I think he's probably blocking tight end, like you said, which teams need those. So yeah, good for them.
Yeah, he'll be on the field as a blocking tight end. I don't see much offensively. With the third pick in the fifth round, the guy I was really surprised to see fall this far, and I don't know if some of it was his testing numbers or what, but Brevin Jordan out of Miami goes to the Houston Texans. And I know a lot of people are talking about, okay, well, this is a great landing spot for him. But Jordan Akins has almost like the exact same profile as him and has done absolutely nothing with the Texans for the past couple years. So I will still take Brevin Jordan. I like him. I think he's a great athlete. I know his testing numbers weren't great, but what I saw on film showed to me that he could be a very versatile weapon. It's just going to the Texans, who I think is, I hate putting it this way, it's just kind of like a dumpster fire of a franchise at the moment with everything going on. We don't even know if Deshaun Watson's going to be there much longer. A lot of people are already talking about Davis Mills being the guy. I know Adam Schefter kind of refuted that the other day, I think during the draft coverage, saying, no, Deshaun Watson will still be there. But regardless, I don't think great landing spot, and he's got two other tight ends ahead of him on the depth chart as of right now. So your thoughts on Brevin Jordan?
I was also surprised to see him go in the fifth. There were a lot of tight ends drafted ahead of him, but I'm not totally shocked. He's a smaller guy who didn't test well. His film is just okay. I think he's good after the catch, but I don't really think he does much else. He doesn't really attack the ball. he's incomplete as a player. And his injury history is rough. Like it's pretty bad, which I think dropped him a lot. So the spot is good because there's not an established guy there. There's just a group of guys. I mean, maybe Kahale Waring will eventually be something. I don't know, but it's fine. I think everybody who's really hyping him and pumping him and just really excited about his landing spot are in denial that he went in the 5th round. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I think at this point, as much as it hurts to say this, I think Kyle Pitts is probably going top 5 in most drafts. You better grab Freiermuth because outside of that, this tight end class has really kind of become a bad class. So we hope for at least 3 really good guys, maybe 4. I still like Hunter Long in his landing spot, but it's not great. So, yeah, I think it's really kind of become the Pat Freiermuth and Kyle Pitts show now up at the top. Next up was Felix's guy, Noah Gray out of Duke. Good route runner, really good quickness, good separation. He goes with the 18th pick in the 5th round to the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the pick for the Chiefs, but I think it's fair to say he's never going to beat out Travis Kelce until Travis Kelce retires or leaves the Chiefs. So outside of that, I have no real interest in Gray.
Yeah, I liked Gray coming in. I thought he was good. I think that's a nice landing spot. Maybe as like the second tight end there. I think that was a nice value where they got him, and I'm interested in Gray. But long term, he doesn't really have much upside, right? I mean, Kelce isn't going anywhere. So
yeah,
it's maybe a guy you pick up in 2 years when Kelce gets older, and hope that he can kind of be a little more relevant, but not a gap targeting currently.
And then the last tight end drafted, another guy that Felix has talked about, Zach Davidson out of Central Missouri. With the 24th pick in the 5th round, he goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Taller tight end. He's got above average speed, decent hands, really good at contested catches as well. Good blocker. But I'm going to say the same thing. Irv Smith is not nearly as proven as Travis Kelce, obviously, but I do think he's shown enough that I think Irv Smith is going to be the guy there. Now, maybe Davidson gets on the field because we've seen Minnesota, even after Stefanski left, they still run a lot of 2 tight end sets, so I think they'll still continue that somewhat. So maybe Davidson gets on the field a lot, but I don't have high hopes for him unless Irv Smith kind of proves he's not the guy we all thought he could be coming out of college.
Yeah, I think they have a need for tight end depth. I don't really know what Davidson's upside is either because I'm not the biggest Irv Smith fan. I think he's fine, but they also have Tyler Conklin, who was productive at the end of the year, and so maybe he's coming in as like the 3rd tight end. They need a little depth there, so that's fine. I don't know a ton about Davidson. I do think it's interesting that he ran a 4.6 at his size, though. I mean, 6'7", 245. Like that's a good time for him. So he might be a guy to dig into a little bit more. But from a fantasy perspective, I don't think you can really target him. Maybe if you're interested in the free agent period after your draft, but I don't think he's draftable currently in rookie drafts.
Yeah, I am with you there. All right, so that covers all of the offensive players that were drafted in rounds 4 through 7. Moxley, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your Sunday to join me. Everybody else, if you got any questions, you can hit any of us up in the Discord with it. Good luck in your rookie drafts, and we will talk to you guys again soon.